Here, you can have this while you're at it. Okay, play whenever I tell you to. That's actually part of the work. So, the question tends to totally miss the mark because it tries to statically define a fluid mass of absurdity. Because of this, it's usually spoken of in just basic analogy. My personal favorite analogy is it's the cult section of the bookstore. But what actually does that mean? If you throw anime, comics, kitsch, children's books, all the kooks on the Rational Wiki, and just any other random shit that you have lying around into a Blendtec blender, blended and decorated cake made out of the hopes and dreams of your youth, then you made a pretty interesting cake. Like that. But it still doesn't come close to defining Bizarro. So there's that. It's really actually just a no-holds-barred exploration of unfettered creativity, and nothing is taboo or off the table. But the only real stipulation is that it has to be entertaining. It just has to be fun. Now a word from our sponsors. A lot of Bizarro has to do with its influences, so there's a lot of visual going on here. Can you hear that? It doesn't matter if there's no audio. Alright, so Bizarro is basically a mishmash of pop culture chewed up and spit out at you in nice and fun ways. So, what's the history of Bizarro literature? It's relatively new. The Eraserhead Press started in about 1999. They didn't call what they wrote Bizarro. They just wrote some really crazy crap. And it was dubbed irrealism, new absurdism, but all of these were just way too intellectual and tied them to things that they had really nothing to do with. And there were a shit ton of manifestos about it. Everybody that read a book figured that they'd hop on this new thing and try and define it. And nobody got it. Nobody came close because they were trying to intellectualize this thing. But in 2005, there's a forum called the Mondo Bizarro Forum. Kevin Doyle II, who I will talk about just a little bit later, wrote a book called The Tangerine Effect, which is considered one of the great classics of Bizarro literature, if you can actually call something that. He wrote what could be considered the Bizarro Manifesto, which was called "What the Fuck Is This All About?" And it outlines the general aesthetic and through the examples of other writers and his experience with publishing and the creative process. And since that section is over, we're gonna have another lovely little video intermission. I'm gonna do that a lot. He's got penises for hands. Sad penis hand man. So who publishes this shit? The first publisher was called Eraserhead Press. They are the original. They're still going strong. They are the biggest publisher of Bizarro literature. They hold the flag and they promote it like crazy zealots. They have grown and have many different sub-imprints that speak to the specific subgenres. They still hold the basic tenets of Bizarro literature, but they are more specific, like Deadite Press. They do extreme horror, but it's more of a Bizarro tint. Swallow Down, which does a little bit more intellectually kind of stuff. They're the geekier side of Bizarro literature. Lazy Fascist, which is even more intellectual, and they tend to focus on a lot of newer writers and short story collections and all that kind of good stuff. Then there is Shark vs. Badger, which does comics. The Spunk Goblin, which is kids' books. Not really kids' books, but kids' books. And one of the guys that runs Eraserhead Press, Carlton Mellon III, has the Avant Punk books, which is his book club. Also, there's quite a few. We have Afterbirth, which was they were one of the originals. They were alongside with Eraserhead, but unfortunately they closed in 2010. Tangerine, the one that I spoke about earlier, was printed on it. That was one of their big claims to fame in underground literature. They also helped a lot of other people get their start. So we have Raw Dog Screaming, which is the second largest publisher of Bizarro literature. They're still going strong. They're putting out a huge amount. There's actually quite a few local authors that put out on Raw Dog Screaming. And yeah, they're the second largest publisher for Bizarro fiction. They're pretty big. They're pretty good. There's a couple more. Legume Man books. They're Australian, which is something to note. I mean, they're Australian, so they're really fucking weird. They're only almost as weird as Japanese people. Yeah. Plus this movement, which is centered a lot on the West Coast, has actually made it across over to Australia. That's actually pretty interesting. Then there's Rooster Republic, who they're smaller, but they're a lot more open with their submission process. Their basic guidelines for submitting books to them is that they have the 3 Fs. They have to be far out, fucked up, and funny. And if they are, you are definitely in there. Speaking of far out, fucked up, and funny, there's a GIF for you. That's far out, fucked up, and funny.
Did you say GIF?
I'm not going to get into that.
That's not
The guy that made it called it that, okay?
Alright, let's check it.
So yeah, there's that. So who writes this shit? One of the most interesting characters is this guy, Tom Bradley. He is. I'm not going to get into the specific books because these guys are very prolific. The people that write Bizarro, they just shoot shit out like mad. It's all very interesting, but they're very prolific. They're all also nuts. This guy is known as an essayist. And a fiction writer. He's actually done columns, a lot of literary columns. But information on his life, if you look him up on Wikipedia, the 2 lines or 3 lines about his life are all that's ever found about him. Even people that interview him or spend time with him, if they ask him about his life, he literally recites what's said in the Wikipedia. So he has this really odd mythology around his life that's basically based off of one of the characters that goes throughout his books, which is named Sam Edwin. These are the book titles and the cover art kind of speak for a lot of the books. But like I said, I'm not going to get into what the hell they're about. Some of them I will because I really love them.
But what's the 3 things that he said? What are the lines?
What?
What do we know about his life? What does it say on the Wikipedia?
He was born in the Utah Flats when they were testing when they were still doing nuclear tests out in the open. He traveled a lot and met people that died in Tiananmen Square, and because he was born in nuclear tests, he felt drawn to live in Hiroshima, where he lives today, and he's lived for like 30 years. That's basically all he will ever tell anybody. There's a handful of really long interviews with him, and that's all he ever says about his life. That's it. So that's it. And it's funny because like the anecdotal stuff that he never confirms or denies are things like he shot his best friend because the semi-autobiographical character did that in one of his books, stupid things like that. So that's how he rolls. So that's a book cover. That's one of his books. Write this down. You might want to read these because these are actually going to be good. But I'm not going to get into them. But we have time constraints. So this one, Black and Blue. I didn't read that one, but whatever.
The cover art is
Yeah, the cover art's awesome, and this guy fucking nuts. And Bob, maybe he's written probably about like 20 or 30 books between nonfiction and fiction, but that's just a couple of them. And there's Jeff Burke, who is one of my absolute personal favorites. This guy is awesome. He's known mostly for Shatner Quake, which is a story about William Shatner going into a Shatner convention, not a Trekkie convention, a William Shatner convention, and a bunch of Bruce Campbell fans blowing up a bomb in the middle of the convention that caused all of the William Shatners on the screen from every movie or anything he's ever been in to come to life and try and kill him. So that's that story. He's actually known. First off, that's a great story. Second off, he's known because he took things to he just blew out the pop culture sensibility of Bizarro and just really made that a solidified thing. He made a sequel to this, which was Shatner Quest, which is one of my absolute favorite books. It's completely retarded. The book cover is actually a little bit of a spoiler because there is a Godzilla-sized William Shatner at the end. It's about a quest to find and save William Shatner, and only to find him doing that to LA. But considering how Bizarro is, it's not really about the end, it's about the journey, and it's just fucking crazy. His other book, he's only written 3 books, or 4 books. The other one is Cripple Wolf. Obviously, they don't give a rat's ass about being PC. And the Supergiant Monster Time, which was one of, I think there are about 4 or 5 of these, the Choose Your Own Mindfuck series. Next one up is Steve Eilert. He is incredibly prolific, and he does a lot of series. This book, Lynn, he actually made a micro-budget film in 2011. You can actually see it on YouTube. Another book he's did Novahead and Adam, which were all part of a 4-book series that I cannot remember what the hell it is for the life of me, and I didn't note it, but whatever. Then this one has an awesome cover. Toxicology. This is the latest book, The Rebel at the End of Time. I've not read that. Then we've got Kristen Chenoweth. She was one of the first people to bring like kind of a feminine sensibility to Bizarro. Obviously, the hell kitty crap. That's her latest book. Japan Conquers the Galaxy. She deals with a lot of themes of like romance and love, but in really stupid situations, like that. There's a definite romance story to this, and this one right here, which is Love in the Time of Dinosaurs, which is a story about monks fighting dinosaurs, and it's got this Romeo and Juliet thing going on that's really weird, but it's awesome. It's really well done, but it's freaking weird. So next up we have Cameron Pierce, who is one of the most notorious names in Bizarro. Mostly for Ask Goblins of Auschwitz. It's a story about Ask Goblins that run Auschwitz. You're getting what you're sold. He actually is known for the Bizarro cliche, which was noted on crack.com at one point for just stringing unrelated nouns together and just creating a title and then going nuts with it from there. Another one is the Abortion Arcade, which is his first. This is the first one he did. Really weird. Gargoyle Girls with Spider on. I have not read that one. And also Cthulhu Comes to Vampire Kingdom, which is sold as Cthulhu in the Twilight world, but it's really about a village of vampires that realize that the world is going to be ended because Cthulhu is looking for the perfect hamburger. But it's a good story. I have to say that about all of these. They're good stories. Then there's Constance Fitzgerald. She's only written this one book, Trashland a Go-Go, but it was really good, and it was part of the new Bizarro author series, which is a series that Eraserhead puts out about 15 to 20 books every year from new, unheard of authors, just giving them a shot. And some of them are crap, some of them are really good. This one was good. It got a lot of good reviews and some accolades, or at least as much as you can expect from something called Trashland a Go-Go. Then we have D. Harlan Wilson. D. Harlan Wilson, if you like horror, D. Harlan Wilson is probably your guy. First off, he was one of the founders of Eraserhead Press, but he's also known for his, what he calls his splatter shtick, which is this crazy, silly, like, popish, there's really no other way to explain it other than like a bubblegum representation of absolute ultra violence. The guy is extreme as hell, but the way that he explains things, you kind of feel like you're looking at them through the eyes of Britney Spears. And it's really weird, and it's really amazing. He's great. He's got a handful of books, but this is his first one. They had to go ahead, and his latest one is Panama, which has actually gotten a lot of critical acclaim lately, which is weird. And we've got Gina Rinaldi. She won a 2007 Wonderland Award, which is basically a Bizarro award. And it was for the best collection, short story collection. She does lovely things like Sky Tones, the Swarm of Flying Eyeballs, and Suicide Girls of the Afterlife. It is not about suicide girls, it is about two girls that committed suicide and realize how boring the afterlife is. Bait and switch. So, then we come to the granddaddy of them all, who is Carlton Melchior. He's one of my absolute favorite authors, and he is a hero of mine. And I did get his okay on this whole thing before I did it. So he's also known for his crazy names and his awesome book covers. So the Baby Jesus Butt Plug. It's about a baby Jesus butt plug that's cloned from human flesh and decides to go crazy on the people that are using it and kill them all. He's written over 40 books, and he's had short stories in countless collections, and he's known for his absurd titles, obviously, and cover art. But really, what he is great at is just his surreal, absurd take on pop life and pop culture, and just doing it in a way that you don't know. It's like not just spoonfuls of sugar, but like cramming your throat with sugar until you puke. Satan Burger, this actually was critically acclaimed. Whenever he is actually on many, he's been on pretty much every young writer list for the past probably about 10 years, and a lot of it is because of Satan Burger. It's the first book he ever wrote. He does really interesting things with language, with description, very fluid. It's an insanely stupid story that's really transcendental at the same time. It's a story about a place called Satan Burger, where you have to sell your soul to get a hamburger. But there's also this cataclysmic thing going on that it's just impossible to freaking explain. It's really hard to explain these stories, which is kind of a pain about them, because all you can do is say, hey, half naked chick with a crazy hamburger with eyeballs. Earlier I read from Haunted Vagina, which is actually a story about a fear of sexuality, it's actually really interesting how he goes through it, but it's obviously confronting the fear of sexuality with men and women. So like I said, he's known for his titles and his cover art. So here's some titles and cover art. Christmas on Crack. This is a series right here. You can kind of tell. Morbidly Obese. That is a phenomenal book. If you like anime or anything Japanese, I recommend the Morbidly Obese Ninja. It's great. Yeah, it's great. The Menstruating Mall is really good too. It's kind of like think Evil Dead, but like on crack. Another group. Yeah. So this is kind of happening, guys. So, fantastic. All right. And now, a luchador and 2 ostriches foil a robbery.
This is for real.
No, I doubt it. All right, so Bizarro is big on getting your shit out there. They don't care. They do care what it is. But they really just want people to get their stuff out there. And part of that is their big support of DIY and indie publishing. They're a great source of information. The publishers and the communities are a great source of information on indie and DIY publishing. They have, from the helpful walkthroughs and their submission pages, I mean, they have like frequently asked questions like software companies have for submitting work. And it doesn't even apply to them. They just say, you know what, this is how you do it for everybody. You know, they're very, very, very helpful. And Bizarro Central is, bizarrocentral.com website is, they have regular sections on self-publishing and how to deal with editors and all that kind of good stuff. So, the other thing they're big on is the creative process. Creativity like this. The audio is just not necessary on this. If you recognize this, that's awesome. It doesn't matter, it's just loud noise. I think the only thing it said is caption. Anybody actually recognize this?
There's movement.
No. What? Japanese retardation. From Meatball Machine, the Meatball Machine, which is completely stupid. An absolute waste of an hour of your life, but it's such a great waste.
What is it?
Meatball Machine. It's great. It's so cool. So the creative process. They support the pan creative process, which means they're huge. Anytime they talk about the creative process, they're talking about writing, film, music, visual art, whatever you do. It's whatever you do, they apply it to it. They talk about, they never just say this is for writers or whatever. They have a thing called BizarroCon, which is, it's 3 days of networking, workshops, and panels, and all that kind of boring stuff, but it's mostly parties and people just bullshitting about weird stuff. And that's really basically what it says on the website for it is, it says, oh, we have all this stuff, but then it's huge parties, like lots of alcohol-fueled retardation. And there's also BizarroCentral.com, which is an amazing website. I mean, how to explain that? They do a lot of really interesting things. Like they have like a daily dilation exercise, which they have an artist who daily puts things, an amazing artist that daily puts pictures on their website. He says, hey guys, create something. I don't care what it is, just create something really quick, put it in the comments. And they're just random illustrations that the guy does, specifically for this exercise. It's pretty cool. They also have this thing called the Tea House series, where various authors, various published authors, explain how to deal with writer's block, the creative process, how to deal with publishers. They'll just throw out ideas to to get people to write some flash fiction, whatever. There's a lot of interaction in here. Pretty much every article that they have on BizarroCentral.com says, and write about it or create about it, and then post it in comments. People do. Segue. There's that. So Bizarro and other media. Oh, this sucks because this one actually does require audio. That sucks.
I think we might be able to arrange it if you can bring the computer a bit closer to it.
Yeah, sure.
Put the wireless mic by the